Love comes and it goes, but mostly it goes, and nobody knows why, but I know why. No, wait, that's a lie, 'cause I tried time after time. Time changes it all. Every time that I fall, it all falls apart. It's just my unlucky heart saying, I'm alone, I find myself. The tired truth that hurts so well is all I find, all these tears in my eyes. I can't stand the candlelight, it's just too bright. No one will hold me. I stand proud to sing out loud. If there was only a love song for the lonely. I talk to myself and I wish me well, but it never helps. So I go down, so down, I'm looking up at the ground. My heart won't float, so throw me a rope, but just the thread of a hope it won't stay this way. Okay, I'll give it one more day praying for magic words of golden advice. A little mercy would be nice, so my heart won't get used to the dark. But I can't stand the candlelight, it's just too bright. No one will hold me. I stand proud to sing out loud. If there was only a love song for the
Hey everybody, back again. Hope everybody had a good sports day. I know I had a pretty good sports day. The Cubbies won and the Titans won, so if only the Predators could have played and won today, it would have been a perfect sports day for me. But anyway, thanks for joining me. This is my second my second Facebook Live video that basically is I'm just kind of talking about the songs on my new record, Beautiful Brand New Day. Last week we did the title track, Beautiful Brand New Day, and today we're going to talk about Love Song for the Lonely. And I appreciate everybody checking it out, and appreciate everybody that's downloaded my record. It's my first record I've ever done, where it's Steve Mandile and not a band or something like that. Oh, the Preds actually did win today, my wife informed me, so that's good. Good for them. Preseason, but whatever. Love Song for the Lonely. Oh, by the way, before I get started, I want to mention that these videos are being uploaded to my website. So if you miss one or you want to check one out, you can go back and look at the other ones on my website, stevemandel.com, and there's a media section and there's videos there, and the videos will be popping up there. I'm actually going to put the one that I did at the Grand Ole Opry. I have to condense it down because it's an hour and 15 minutes long, and I'm going to try to condense it down to just the interesting parts. There's some pretty neat stuff happen. Said hi to my buddy Randy Owen from Alabama. Luke Bryan made a cameo, and of course Chip and Claire from the TV show, and then we played the Opry, and it was pretty cool. Anyway, so Love Song for the Lonely is the second track on my record, and some of these songs are older than others. This one is actually pretty old, I think, and I don't know because I lost my hard drive. My hard drive died that had this song on it from years ago, and so I don't have an exact date, but I believe it was 03 or 04, so it's pretty old. It's been around for a long time. This record basically consists of songs that I wrote by myself. So I was kind of having to go back pretty far. Songs that I wanted that kind of had the same thread that I wanted to kind of include that would make sense to be on the same project. Love Song for the Lonely is one of those that's kind of stood the test of time for me. It's been it's not long after Six Wire we lost our record deal on Warner Brothers, and I had I kind of just wanted to start writing some things that were not country, that were just a little bit more on the artistic side of things that I wanted to do, because I'm a big pop and rock fan. So I remember it was Christmas Eve, and I was single, and it was like I'm not kidding. It was like the third or fourth Christmas in a row where I was single. I mean, I didn't even have anybody to call and say Merry Christmas. I mean, it was just one of those things that just happened at Christmas time. I just ended up single. So I had bought this keyboard here. It's a Korg Triton, and I just bought it, and I was staying out at my mom's house. Spent Christmas Eve night there, and everybody had gone to bed, so I was just in the bedroom. I brought my keyboard out because it was brand new, and I knew everybody would be going to bed, and I would just be sitting there doing nothing. So I got this. Let me make a couple changes here so I can play this keyboard. I bought this keyboard, and I was just kind of messing around with it, and I think I was just kind of making fun of myself for being by myself all the time. And so I had this little Wurlitzer sound, just kind of old school, and I thought it sounded kind of cool. I had my headphones on, and I started playing this progression just kind of out of the blue. Which seemed like a kind of again, Beatles influences, because I love the Beatles, and it just sounded like something kind of descending, half steps. Again, back to the 4 minor, the Beatle chord that I love so much. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So then I got to this, I started just kind of messing around with that. I thought that's kind of neat. So I just kept playing to see where it would take me, because the bass notes are going. So I just went up a half step and just started descending down from there. And this is a great example of just kind of letting the song kind of dictate where it wants to go. And this is exactly what happened here. It was like, so that's like the 6 minor. It's a typical, B section or a channel section, whatever you want to call it, of a song. 6 minor. I started just descending on the bass note. I'm alone, I find myself. I just kept going. And again, so I realized that I ended up on that chord there, which is completely not even in the major scale that I was in. But it felt like a whole new part. So now that's a new one. Like here's the one before in G. Now I'm in a new key, and it just kind of like, so it was going. keys. Huh? Can't stand candlelight, it's much too bright, with no one to hold me. I'd stand proud to sing out loud if there was only a love song for the lonely. So that was in the other key. So you kind of want us to go back to that chord, right? But the verses that I had were in G major. So I'm ending up here on G minor. If there was only a love song for the lonely. So I'm thinking to myself, how do I get back into the other key? So I thought, just play, that's G minor, so I'll just go ahead and just play the major. So it's like I say, it's sometimes when you're playing something. For me, I always write the music. I have to. It's easy for me for some reason, and I don't know why, but it's easy for me to write music and come up with melodies. You know, so lyrics are always the hardest part for me, and I believe that the lyrics are the craft of it. You know, and to me, Billy Joel is like one of the masters of rhyming and inner rhyming. And so I was sitting there thinking about my situation. It's Christmas Eve. I'm by myself. I was feeling a little sorry for myself. I was kind of lonely, you know. And so I kept thinking, love comes and it goes, but mostly it goes. And nobody knows why, but I know why. No, wait, that's a lie. 'Cause I tried time after time, changes it all. Every time that I fall, it all falls apart. Just my unlucky heart. It's all those little inner rhymes in there. That's very Billy Joel. I get a lot of that from Billy Joel. He's one of my favorite writers of all time. And when I'm alone, I find myself with the tired truth I hide so well. So all I find are these tears in my eyes, and then I could not come up with a chorus. I could not, just for my life. I didn't even have a hook. I had no idea, which is very unlike me. I usually write with a hook, because with a song title, because if I don't have like a lighthouse to write my lyrics toward, then I'm just all over the place. And it's just, maybe that's the commercial songwriter in me. Maybe it's I don't know. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of the Beatles, and a lot of times, unless it's a love song, you really can't really have any idea what they're talking about. So so this was an unusual situation where I actually wrote a song with no hook. I had no lighthouse to write toward, and so I just had this. And so I had melody. I knew what I was going to write, what it was going to sound like, and it was going to sing like, but I didn't know how I was going to wrap up the lyric. I actually had the first verse written and started on the second verse as well. I talk to myself and I wish me well, but it never helps, so I go down. I'm so down, I'm looking up at the ground. So I had all these self-deprecating lyrics that basically were just saying, "Hey, man, you're by yourself," but it can be a lonely world out there, you know. I mean, there's a lot of single people out there, and a lot of people that have had their heart broken and things like that. And there's all these love songs, and especially at Christmas time, everybody's coupled up, and everybody has somebody, and it's a romantic time of year, and it's just one of those things. So I distinctly remember I was driving. It was when I lived in Green Hills in Nashville. I was driving down Granny White Pike, which turns into 12th Avenue. Those of you that know Nashville know that area very well. And I was driving up, and I was going through a light, and just out of the blue, I was saying, "I can't stand the candlelight. It's just too bright." And I was like, and I thought, well, that's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. And I was like, I was looking for something that was just a little bit left to center for this song. That's kind of a quirky little, weird little song. So I kind of went with that. And in the very last of If There Was Only, and I just out of the blue just thought a love song. If there was only a love song for the lonely, and I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of there it is. You know, it's kind of an anthem for people that can't hold any relationships together, things like that. You know, so that's basically how the lyric came about. The song with all the descending bass lines and whatnot. That's like I say, the song kind of it kind of just led me down that road. Even changed keys, and once I learned to resolve it back to where I started, then all the pieces kind of fell into place. So anyway, that is how I wrote that song. Now, as far as the recording part of it, and this might be totally uninteresting to some of you, but this is what I did. This demo is, and a lot of these, I mean, these weren't records, you know, these are just demos. And hang on a second, let me find what we're doing here. And then I just realized as I was listening to this demo that I did back in, what was it, 2003, 2004, it sounded really good. And here I was, I didn't have the hard drive, so I couldn't go back and tweak it. I couldn't go back and remix it and things like that. So, which is what I like to do if I can. So instead of just starting from scratch, I thought, well, I'll just use this. But the problem is technology has gotten better, and I've hopefully learned a thing or two in the last 17 or whatever years, and 14 years. So I just basically I said, you know, it's not holding up. It's not as punchy as the other ones. It's not, the snare drum doesn't hit like I want it to, and things like that. So I actually went in. I'm gonna turn this around so you can see what's going on here. Oh, I'm glad you can zoom. All right, and you can see these are waveforms. Pull this down a little bit. These are waveforms, and here's the song. This part that I'm highlighting here is the song. Now, by itself,
Love comes.
sounds the same. Nothing changes. But when the bass drum hits,
I tried time after time.
Actually, this is another here's another little side note about the way I recorded this. Now, if you watch my last video, you saw that I programmed the drums with my fingers. But way back in the day, before that technology was available, I had like just hard drive after hard drive full of songs with real drums, and I had every drum groove you could imagine. Chuck Tilley is playing drums on this one, but the funny thing is he is playing drums on another song. It's a song called, if I can remember, it was like It's a Good Time for Goodbye or something like that. It was a real country shuffle. And I didn't have any way to get drums. I didn't have, back in those days, if I wanted to have Chuck come over, I had to either book a studio, and it's just like super expensive, or he came to my house and I had to clear out all my living room furniture, and we set a drum kit up, and it just was a real pain. So I would just steal drums from old songs and piece them together. And it's exactly what I did on this song. I changed the tempo of it with a program called Pitching Time. Basically, it says, this is the tempo that it was. This is the tempo I want it to be. And I would change it. And then I would take all those drums and I would just kind of put them over to the side. And I would take the pieces that I would need and I would just put them in order. And it sounded like he played drums on a brand new song. So that's what guys on a budget do when they need a drum track real fast. Because honestly, with what technology is, you know, the only thing you really need a studio for these days is to get a killer drum sound. Besides having a bunch of killer musicians in the same room together, but start doing the math on that stuff, it gets really expensive. So the way I do things, I've always been kind of a one-man band here in my studio, and one thing I don't do very well is play drums. I play drums, but not very well. And so if I couldn't get Chuck over, this is what I would do. So this is basically a drum track from another song that he's playing.
Tried time after time.
So what I did was, and this is like I say, this is probably not the super interesting part to some people, but maybe it is. I'm not sure. But I went in and I found where the kick drum hit. It's right there, and you can see what I did there with that. And so I went through the entire song and found every kick drum hit, and I found every snare hit, and I replaced them and had them hit right where anyway, it was a total hassle and it took forever. And but that's what I did. I basically went back in, and you're not gonna be able to hear it on this. It had the low end on it, but basically it went from being a little bit on the thin side to being really, really big. These bigger drums that I have here are added to the track, and that made it a lot more, a lot punchier, and a lot better. And it kind of it actually it fit in with the rest of the project a lot better because now it had the same attitude that the other songs do, as far as, you know, being real punchy with the kick and the snare, which is, to me, the bench pressing of the studio is the sound of your drums, you know. So anyway, so that's that, and that's how I recorded it, and that's how I wrote the song. I'm not going to keep these things super long, but I did promise a small tour of my studio. So if you want to take a little walk here with me, it's not. I mean, let's be honest. This is our bonus room. Our bonus room, and that's my neighbors who, thank God, can't hear me as much as they claim that they can. I hope that they can. I'll give you kind of a bird's eye view here. This is my workspace. I spend a lot of time in here. There's my console and these old control surfaces that control Pro Tools. That's a console that I used to get the sounds from the guitar amps and the drums and whatnot into the computer, which is in this big, massive, soundproof case. And then a couple of different sets of speakers. I got a little camera here, and I'll show you what that does in just a minute. It's pretty interesting. And this is my Kemper. This is my bass. This is my guitar amp. Someone asked about showing the Kemper, and I'll try to do that at some point when I have less to say on one of these songs. But it's an amazing piece of machinery right here. I can call up any guitar amp that I want, and it sounds just like a real thing. So I have like hundreds and hundreds of guitar amps in this box right here, and then I can add effects and things like that with that thing. It's amazing. There's the foot controller for it. Here are some of my guitars. Gibson 335, which actually belongs to the show Nashville. I'm borrowing it, hopefully for eternity. Here's a guitar that I just put together. It's a Strat. I just kind of started getting in the middle of that. Here's my buddy Blaze. This thing's a sweet guitar that my buddy Blaze in Dallas made for me. It's one of my favorite guitars. And my old standby, the Tom Anderson Stratocaster, and my Taylor 810 acoustic, which is incredible. Here's some other ones, the Les Paul. And there's a Gibson. I'm actually storing this for a buddy of mine, Doug Forbes, who letting me perpetually keep it in my studio, which I love. I use it all the time. There's a little a banjo strung like a guitar. You'll hear a banjo on some of these songs coming up. 12-string, Yamaha 12-string, and a Jerry Jones electric 12-string, which is pretty badass. Here's World Championship Cubs. Anyway, Johnson resonator guitar. This is a 1949 Fender double neck lap steel. that belongs to my stepdad, Moose. And I'm not very good at playing that thing, but I love it. And here's the Telecaster, and my bass guitar, and some, my other Taylor, and just some knick-knack guitars that I've got. Here's my little workspace that I use when I'm working on my guitars and things like that. Let's see if something else that I made right here. Oh, look. I made this thing too.
Hi, everybody.
Let's go show them the drum room, okay?
Okay. I'll read them too.
Okay.
Here is the drum set. You can always tune the sound if you want. James. Hi, everybody.
Okay. And then this is where I do vocals in the upstairs part here. My other workspace is here. And I can control my Pro Tools downstairs from up here, so I use this screen. When I said I had a camera downstairs, this is the drum kit right here, which Wrigley loves to play. It's covered up right now. And see, she's good at it. I turn that on and Chuck can see what's going on in the control room, and there's another camera right there, so we can turn it on downstairs and see what he's doing. So it kind of works.
I'll read them downstairs if you want me to.
Okay.
I should just lie down.
Okay. Well, come on. So anyway, so this is my spot. This is my little creative spot, and come on, buddy. And that's pretty much it. So, appreciate everybody hanging out and sharing some time with me today. This one will be on my website as well. If you have any questions, I don't know if there are any questions. I think Reagan might have been downstairs keeping track of questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to do another Facebook Live next week, which will be, see, what is the third song? I guess it is Rock This Town, I think is the third one, which is a pretty heavy rocker on my record. Beautiful Brand New Day. Let's see. Let me see if I have any questions. Is that it? Reagan, are you watching? Are you any way you can keep track of? Were there any questions?
Reagan.
Or
Oh, Reagan.
say Reagan.
Reagan.
Oh, there she is.
Reagan.
Okay.
Wrigley. Is this Sonny?
I did saw you.
Did I have any questions?
You had a couple.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. All right. For some reason, I'm not seeing. Oh, I see.
How long did it take you to integrate the new drums, and how hard was it?
How hard was it on the paper?
Okay. Integrating the new drums. As far as on this, I'm assuming you mean on this song. That's the question I'll answer. It took.
My question.
Hey, Wrigley.
It took an extremely long time. It took me, I think, a couple of hours to just go in and find each waveform and figure out exactly whether it was like a trigger. That program that I brought up last time called Stephen Slate Drums, and I had to go in basically and tell it exactly where to trigger, and then figure out which drum sounds to use. And there were a couple of, for all you tech heads out there, a few phasing issues, and I had to kind of correct a few things. So. Phasing, mean if it's not exactly right, then it'll sound like there's no kick drum at all. So it's got to be exactly aligned, exactly with the exact same waveform. So as you can imagine, it's as boring as it sounds. It's twice as boring to even try to edit things like that. Anything else?
Do you have JBL speakers?
Do I have JBL speakers? I do not have JBL speakers. I have these speakers that I use. One is the Mackie HR 824, which these things are, they have to be getting close to 20 years old, and they're amazing. I just love them. They're not the most expensive speakers in the world, and I just bought these KRK Rocket 5s that are great for sometimes you don't want all of the frequencies. Sometimes you want something a smaller thing, but those KRKs sound really, really good, and I use them as another source for monitoring, and or when I'm just editing vocals, I don't need it to be loud and all that. I'll just put it on that because they're super, super easy on the ears. So, but that's my speaker situation.
After performing and producing and writing with others for so long, what made you decide or want to do a solo project?
What made me decide to do a solo project after I had worked with so many people for so long? I'm not really sure. I think, you know what? I think because I worked on, this is going to be backwards, isn't it? Yeah. Worked on this Chip's record on this every single Friday. Look at that guy. I just the way that he had gone about it, and you know, he has a lot larger audience than I do, obviously, but it just was very creative process. We had a lot of fun. We were under a ton of deadlines. Every week we had to come up with new music. Sometimes we didn't have any music, so we had to kind of just dig something up to make sure we had something. Sometimes we had stuff planned out for weeks, and then sometimes he would get busy and I would get busy, and we wouldn't have anything, so we had to just kind of come up with stuff. So I enjoyed the process a lot, and I liked being able to stay being creative and like that. And I guess there was something about that process and I guess the nuts and bolts of it, of getting something up on iTunes, things like that. It's just, I was like, man, I should do something. And that kind of rattled around in my brain for a long time because, as everyone knows, I'm the epitome of a worker bee in this town. I spend a ton of time doing things for a lot of other people, and that's basically how I make my living, by doing things for other people. And I just thought, you know, if anybody was interested, that I would go ahead and put out a record of my own, and mostly just for me. It's not necessarily a vanity project, as it is just I needed a place for some of these songs that I love, that I knew if I didn't do something with them, or if they didn't get put into a film or someone cutting them or things like that, that they wasn't going to, you know, they were just going to stay on my hard drive, and nothing was going to happen. So I think I just wanted to have a life for some of my songs, and a lot of them are pretty left to center and quirky, and I didn't know if they were going to have a home, so I thought I would just put them out myself. And it wasn't actually really until I was almost ready to put it up. I mean, I was always recording it and everything, and I wasn't thinking too much about it, that I realized that I've never had anything out that was just Steve Mandile. It was always 6-wire, or me writing a song for somebody else, or producing somebody else, or playing guitar on under whatever. And so I guess it just kind of organically happened. I wasn't thinking, hey, I've got to, you know, put Steve Mandile music on. I just wanted to have a home for my songs, and maybe people would get a kick out of hearing them.
Can I say something real quick?
I guess so.
I want Olivia to join you. Everybody, I'm so scared, but I'm not 30 years for TV star. And then I went.
Okay, good stuff.
Someone wants to know what your preamps of choice are.
My what?
Your preamps of choice.
Preamps of choice. Okay, well, for those of you that don't know what preamps are, they are the first stage of a signal chain. And a preamp, my preamps of choice are everything that I cannot afford to have in my studio. So there are a ton of great preamps out there. I used to have an Avalon 776, what was it? I forget what it was. 737, I think it was, which was awesome. I really loved it, and now I have a Stephen Slate microphone that has a preamp built into it, and a lot of it is done. So much of it is done with software now that I use a lot of I use the SSL plug-in, the Solid State Logic, which is the big console, and I know this is probably going to get boring for some people, but I love console. I love old consoles. I love the SSL is probably one of my favorites, just because it's just such a great analog console. So I use a lot of the waves is the company that makes the plugins that I use that model an SSL console. So a lot of my stuff is done in the box, but that's kind of, that's just kind of how I do things because that's the gear that I've got.
What's your favorite song you've written, and what's your favorite song you've worked on?
Favorite song I've written and favorite song I've worked on. That's a tough one. I don't know. I have a lot of songs that I've written that are emotionally, powerful for me. One of my favorite songs I've written is actually a song that's on my record called "When a Mother Is Born." We'll get to that one. That's right. When a Mother Is Born, Wrigley's favorite. That's one of my favorite. The ones that are like, there's other things that I listen to them and I go, God, that's just a really great song. I hate to say that about my own songs, but you can't help but just go, God, is it just because I'm so close to it, or is this actually a really, really great song? I'm not totally sure. There's a song on my record called "Unlucky Me," which is one of my. I was just telling, we just listened to the record the other day, and "Unlucky Me" is one of my favorites. And the 6-wire song we've been playing recently, "We Are America," is another one. We play that live, and it's just a really, really emotional song. One of my favorites as well is on our 6-wire Christmas record. It's called "Change the World." Another one that I wrote by myself. It's just a real one of those songs that just kind of fell out, and it just turned out really great. And I listen to it, and I just go, there's nothing I would change on this. It sounds really, really good. So I guess as far as that's my answer on my favorite songs that I've written. The songs that I've worked on, oh my gosh, there's just way, way too many. But it had probably the same songs. Those ones that I've kind of brought to life from nothing. That's always satisfying for an arranger and a songwriter and a producer, and to have a song just in your head and bring it to life completely from soup to nuts till you're all the way done with it. So yeah, probably the same song. That's a great question.
Someone wants Wrigley whistle.
Uh-oh. We have a big thing here. It's okay. Can you whistle? There you go. She's very good at it. She's very proud of it. We're very proud of her. Anything else?
I think that's just about it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody taking interest in this and watching. Again, this one will be on my website hopefully pretty soon. And thank you guys for taking interest in my record. And those of you that have bought it, I don't have any words but to say how much I appreciate you supporting my music and stuff like that. And anyway, I guess that's it for now. And thank you guys for hanging out. Next Sunday.
Thank you for whistling, everybody. Don't forget I have a boo-boo.
Oh, she has a boo-boo too.
What's your boo-boo? Because I beat my shoes.
Yeah.
Don't forget my phone, just I got a boo-boo because I have a phone. Because I just whispered because you were just sleeping and I didn't know that because you're probably...
Okay.
Wow, pirates.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to go now. And thank you guys. I'll be here next week, and I believe the next song is "Rock This Town," which is a big rocker, and I hope that's right. But anyway, thanks again. See you next week.